that I'm allowed and given the privilege and responsibility of amplifying the voices, those perspectives, and those experiences that I come from. You know, beyond that, you know, I'm a father. You know, I'm a single father. You know, and that grinds. You know, that has 3 or 4 jobs. You know, at the same time, which is how I met Ohavia, right? How I run into many of y'all, you know, in this room. Very proud of Day and David and Davida for, you know, I remember when they just had the vision of what this could be, you know, and just glad to be part of the grind. So, you know, that's who I am. You know, that's why I'm here. You know, I'm grateful to spend some time with y'all tonight and look forward to the conversation on the block.
Absolutely. No, we're grateful, Braxton. And I just want to give you your flowers publicly. Y'all, this was the only man, the only city leader when I first started my show that would interview with me about matters of Charlotte and what was going on. So, Braxton, thank you for being a real one and never changing. And thank you for joining us here today. Okay, y'all, so listen, this is pretty much the theme all night. This is how we get down. This is what we do. We keep it real, we keep it honest, but we always give knowledge. Again, the theme for today is owning your voice, having a collective agenda. So honestly, this block tonight is going to go a little different. We will have breakout rooms at which everybody will be able to talk a little bit about the collective voice and the power of even your private voice and the voice that you have personally. And so I'm very excited because we're going to get into a lot of groups. And with Braxton here, I am so excited to hear the political side of things, but more so art and activism coinciding. So we're so excited to have you, Braxton. But in the meantime, before we get to that, we have a video clip that we would like to show you all. It is a TED Talk featuring Thelma Golden. And it's really good. And we're going to get into some questions and answers a little bit after. But in the meantime, would you all please join me in watching this video?
The brilliant playwright Adrienne Kennedy wrote a volume called People Who Have Led My Plays. And if I were to write a volume, it would be called Artists Who Have Led My Exhibitions. Because my work in understanding art and in understanding culture has come by following artists, by looking at what artists mean and what they do and who they are. JJ from Good Times. Significant to many people, of course, because of Dynamite, but perhaps more significant as the first really Black artist on primetime TV. Jean-Michel Basquiat, important to me because the first Black artist in real time that showed me the possibility of who and what I was about to enter into. My overall project is about art, specifically about Black artists, very generally about the way in which art can change the way we think about culture and ourselves. My interest is in artists who understand and rewrite history, who think about themselves within the narrative of the larger world of art, but who have created new places for us to see and understand. I'm showing 2 artists here, Glenn Ligon and Kara Walker, 2 of many who really form for me the essential questions that I wanted to bring as a curator to the world. I was interested in the idea of why and how I could create a new story, a new narrative in art history and a new narrative in the world. And to do this, I knew that I had to see the way in which artists work, understand the artist studio as a laboratory, imagine then reinventing the museum as a think tank, and looking at the exhibition as the ultimate white paper, asking questions, providing the space to look and to think about answers. In 1994, when I was a curator at the Whitney Museum, I made an exhibition called Blackmail. It looked at the intersection of race and gender in contemporary American art. It sought to express the ways in which art could provide a space for a dialogue, complicated dialogue, dialogue with many, many points of entry, and how the museum could be the space for this contest of ideas. This exhibition included over 20 artists of various ages and races, but all looking at Black masculinity from a very particular point of view. What was significant about this exhibition is the way in which it engaged me in my role as a curator, as a catalyst for this dialogue. One of the things that happened very distinctly in the course of this exhibition is I was confronted with the idea of how powerful images can be in people's understanding of themselves and each other. I'm showing you two works, one on the right by Leon Golub, one on the left by Robert Colescott. And in the course of the exhibition, which was contentious, controversial, and ultimately, for me, life-changing in my sense of what art could be, a woman came up to me on the gallery floor to express her concern about the nature of how powerful images could be and how we understood each other. And she pointed to the work on the left to tell me how problematic this image was as it related for her to the idea of how Black people had been represented. And she pointed to the image on the right as an example to me of the kind of dignity that needed to be portrayed to work against those images in the media. She then assigned these works racial identities, basically saying to me that the work on the right clearly was made by a Black artist, the work on the left clearly by a white artist, when in effect, that was the opposite case. Bob Colescott, African-American artist, Leon Golub, a white artist. The point of that for me was to say in that space, in that moment, that I really, more than anything, wanted to understand how images could work, how images did work, and how artists provided a space bigger than one that we could imagine in our day-to-day lives to work through these images. Fast forward, and I end up in Harlem, home for many of Black America, very much the psychic heart of the Black experience, really the place where the Harlem Renaissance existed. Harlem now sort of explaining and thinking of itself in this part of the century, looking both backwards and forwards. I always say Harlem is an interesting community because unlike many other places, it thinks of itself in the past, present, and the future simultaneously. No one speaks of it just in the now. It's always what it was and what it can be. And in thinking about that, then my second project, the second question I ask is, can a museum be a catalyst in a community? Can a museum house artists and allow them to be change agents as communities rethink themselves? This is Harlem actually on January 20th, thinking about itself in a very wonderful way. So I work now at the Studio Museum in Harlem, thinking about exhibitions there, thinking about what it means to discover art's possibility. Now, what does this mean to some of you? In some cases, I know that many of you are involved in cross-cultural dialogues. You're involved in ideas of creativity and innovation. Think about the place that artists can play in that. That is the kind of incubation and advocacy that I work towards in working with young Black artists. Think about artists not as content providers, though they can be brilliant at that, but again, as real catalysts. The Studio Museum was founded in the late 60s, and I bring this up because it's important to locate this practice in history, to look at 1968 in the incredible historic moment that is, and think of the arc that has happened since then, to think of the possibilities that we are all privileged to stand in today. And imagine that this museum that came out of a moment of great protest, and one that was so much about examining the history and the legacy of important African-American artists to the history of art in this country, like Jacob Lawrence, Norman Lewis, Romare Bearden. And then, of course, to bring us to today. In 1975, Muhammad Ali gave a lecture at Harvard University. After his lecture, a student got up and said to him, "Give us a poem." And Muhammad Ali said, "Me, we." A profound statement about the individual and the community. The space in which now, in my project of discovery, of thinking about artists, of trying to define what might be Black art cultural movement of the 21st century, what that might mean for cultural movements all over this moment, the me-we seems incredibly prescient, totally important. To this end, the specific project that has made this possible for me is a series of exhibitions, all titled with an F, Freestyle, Frequency, and Flow, which have set out to discover and define the young Black artists working in this moment, who I feel strongly will continue to work over the next many years. This series of exhibitions was made specifically to try and question the idea of what it would mean now, at this point in history, to see art as a catalyst. What it means now, at this point in history, as we define and redefine culture, Black culture specifically in my case, but culture generally. I named this group of artists around an idea which I put out there called post-Black, really meant to define them as artists who came and start their work now, looking back at history, but start in this moment historically. It is really in this sense of discovery that I have a new set of questions that I'm asking. This new set of questions is, what does it mean right now to be African American in America? What can artwork say about this? Where can a museum exist as the place for us all to have this conversation? Really, most exciting about this is thinking about the energy and the excitement that young artists can bring. Their works for me are about not always just simply about the aesthetic innovation that their minds imagine, that their visions create and put out there in the world, but more perhaps importantly, through the excitement of the community that they create as important voices that would allow us right now to understand our situation as well as in the future. I am continually amazed by the way in which the subject of race can take itself in many places that we don't imagine it should be. I am always amazed by the way in which artists are willing to do that in their work. It is why I look to art. It's why I ask questions of art. It is why I make exhibitions. Now, this exhibition, as I said, 40 young artists done over a course of 8 years, and for me, it's about considering the implications. It's considering the implications of this generation has to say to the rest of us. It's considering what it means for these artists to be both out in the world as their work travels, but in their communities as people who are seeing and thinking about the issues that face us. It's also about thinking about the creative spirit and nurturing it, and imagining, particularly in urban America, about the nurturing of this spirit. Now, where perhaps does this end up right now? For me, it is about reimagining this cultural discourse in an international context. So the last iteration of this project has been called Flow, with the idea now of creating a real network of artists around the world, really looking not so much from Harlem and out, but looking across. And Flo looked at artists all born on the continent of Africa. And as many of us think about that continent and think about what it means to us all in the 21st century, I have begun that looking through artists, through artworks, and imagining what they can tell us about the future, what they tell us about our future, and what they create in their sense of offering us this great possibility of watching that continent emerge as part of our bigger dialogue. So, what do I discover when I look at artworks? What do I think about when I think about art? I feel like the privilege I've had as a curator is not just the discovery of new works, the discovery of exciting works, but really it has been what I've discovered about myself and what I can offer in the space of an exhibition, to talk about beauty, to talk about power, to talk about ourselves, and to talk and speak to each other. That's what makes me get up every day and want to think about this generation of Black artists and artists around the world. Thank you.
Insufficiency with Zoom video
Yes,
webinars.
absolutely. So y'all, honestly, Thelma Golden is up there for a list of women, powerful Black women who do anything in the arts. I put her bio in the chat, but for those who didn't catch it, so Thelma Golden is the director and chief curator of the Studio Museum in Harlem, New York. Golden joined the museum as deputy director for exhibitions and programs in 2011 before succeeding Dr. Laurie Stokes Sims, who's also great, the museum's former director and president in 2005. Y'all definitely Google Miss Golden. She is a force and a powerhouse. So Braxton, I want to invite you in. So when we discuss providing art as a space for context of ideas and discourse, Ms. Golden said something that was so good. She said it's about reimagining cultural discourse in an international context. So providing words to things we don't have words for. So Braxton, what I wanted to ask you is, what does owning the narrative mean for you personally, especially when we talk art, activism, or putting our bodies in situations where it can be used for messaging? What does that look like from your perspective?
I mean, for me, the way I approach it is really you have to talk to everybody. You know, you have to find a language where you are able to find common ground without compromising your narrative. You know,
that's good.
You know, and if you're able to do that. You're able to communicate that energy, you know, regardless of where that audience kind of the border is, whether it's in a conference room for people, or if it's on a Zoom, or people across the city, or you're in an arena, you know, with people from all over the world. If you're able to really kind of channel your energy into and your narrative into a way that is translatable, you know? And there's many ways to do that. You can understand sometimes what people are saying with their words, even if you don't know their language.
Right.
You know,
100%.
And that's kind of what art is, right? That's what art, whether it be visual, oral, that's what it does, and that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely, 100%. And I love something that you said too, Braxton, like about channeling and leaning in on what that art form is. But let me tell you, that quote hit, and I just want to lean right there real quick. Find common ground without compromising your narrative. That's powerful. So when we think of that, right? So finding the common ground but not compromising, how did you take that energy to find your own voice and have the courage to lean in to that narrative, whichever one that you really stick to?
Well, I had to ask myself, what is it that what do I want to do? You know, like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? You know,
right.
When I first kind of stepped into the public view, there was a picture, and that resonated with a lot of people. But I knew that I had to, in order to be part of the change, or to work towards the change that I wanted to see, people were going to have more than a fist, an image of a fist, you know? So I had to ask myself, I had to be able to answer in 30 seconds.
Right.
What do I want to do, and why should you trust me to do it? You know, I had to be sure of what my narrative was to myself, you know?
Right.
And sometimes that can be really hard to do if you're not really intentional about figuring it out.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love that you brought up the element of being intentional, and also understanding that it's more than visual, right? So, and I love that you kind of leaned in on that. It was more than a fist. It's like, what's that action going to be about, right? So it's using art as activism, but to really incite education in ways where we can all pull up. So thank you for sharing your perspective, Braxton. That was A1. So now, friends, I'm excited about this block because we're about to prepare to get into breakout rooms. But before we do that, real quick, I want to let y'all know this is a moment where we want to hear from you, okay? So in your breakout rooms, drop any questions that you have in the chat. Also, take your mute off if you want. Take your camera off. But if you don't want to be seen, you don't have to be on camera. But we really want everybody to really engage, because this is a topic, again, it's about collective voice, but more like, especially though, y'all, leaning in on our personal voices to use for the power of the collective, okay? But before we break out, I want to pose this question to you all, and I'm going to put it in the chat. So when we talk the power of you, specifically in personal voice, do you believe in your value? And it goes back to what Braxton was saying about, I needed to know my why, right? When we think about art and activism, art and politics at the intersection, do you believe in your value and what it can bring to this space? So that's the first question. The second question is, do you know your value? And the third question is, what keeps you from showing up authentically in places? And again, friends, I'm gonna put all of these questions down in the chat as I just told it to y'all. But I just wanted you all to really think about that before we break away. I'm about to do Command V in 3, 2, gang, gang. All right, so I want y'all to take those questions, let it lean in your chakra and your shando, and let's really get into it and discuss it, all right? So yeah, we're gonna break y'all away. I could sing for y'all, but I'm not gonna do that. Instead, we're just gonna break y'all away and really take these questions to heart. You should be seeing a join breakout room on your screens. Go ahead and click that and head out. I'll see y'all soon. Maybe the light that they might let me know all the stars are closer, all the stars are closer.
Everybody.
Dave, do you need me to sing?
Yes, please continue to sing. I think most...
Let me know. I can't sing, but there's people on this call. I ain't gonna call their names out. There's people on this line that can sing, and they beautiful, but I'm gonna let it be.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Dave, you sing?
Hey, call them out on the block. Yo, call them out.
I see one of them, one of my best friends. I ain't gonna do him like that, though. I ain't gonna do him like that.
I see Eddie's cracking up. Is it Eddie?
Because that's the one I'm talking about.
Hey.
Yeah. Yes, family. We see y'all coming back in. Braxton, how was your group?
Man, my group saw me. My man Winston just like took a hot knife and just like put it through my heart real quick.
Hey.
Yeah. I'll let him speak to that, like, because honestly, he was saying it better than me.
Absolutely, yeah. So now, y'all, and I'm so glad that you led to that, Braxton. So now this is the point of the block where we turn it over to y'all. The block can't be hot without the stoop, and we are all welcomed on the stoop. So only because Braxton mentioned Winston. Winston, hey, love you. Winston, you up first. Braxton called you out. So we want you to share your perspective. When we talk personal voice and value, where do you feel, where do you fit in that space? Oh, you on mute, bro.
Good. Get the cussing out the way while I was on mute. But it can be frustrating because, especially like, I'm a resident, I'm a homeowner here on the West End corridor. And of course, the news broke today about the development issues and not issues, but the development promises of this quarter and the hope to, build and sustain just the legacy. And it's like you find yourself, it's hard because you have to fight the hardest the people you're fighting for. And it's like, how do I help? Because I want us to win so badly, yet it does feel like, a lot of times your efforts or your attempts fall on deaf ears. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, no, but that's real talk, Winston, especially when it's something that's not just passion. It's something that's like, it has to change. And it's kind of toggling that fine line of let's get to the action and wanting to be the action. And then like, so I get it. I hear you. That's major. That's major. Anybody else want to share? And also too, real quick, y'all, just a few like Zoom, Hue House tings. If you have anything that you want to say, but don't want to say it, audibly, put it in the chat and I'll read it out loud for you guys. But if you would like to share, drop like a me or right here, and then you could fire off and I'll let you speak. So Anansi says, looking for an authentic Black voice for your business or project, and he dropped something there. Crystal says, use your voice to uplift the work that your ancestors put in. Crystal, that's fire. And thanks so much for sending that link and resource, Anansi. So is there anybody else who wants to share when we talk the power of personal voice, knowing your value, how frustrating honestly it can be, especially when we talk showing up authentically as who we are? Because I know in our group, that was a really good topic. Anybody? Hey, I see you, David. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, one of the things that we kind of talked about in our group, and I kind of was like my point for that last question of like what keeps you from showing up authentically. Like it wasn't anything as far as like, you know, how I look or how I dress, like all those things are always authentic. I think it was knowing, kind of speaking about like reading the room and knowing when to present your value and being able to present your value at the right time. Like during this time, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of folks are seeing value. We see what cultural capital has become. It's becoming just as strong a currency as regular money. So for me, it's been about, you know, knowing when to find that window and when to present that value. And that's kind of how I think about things. Like the analogy I gave is like when I used to enter rooms kind of when I was younger, I used to be more of like a machine gun. It's like you kind of want to be not necessarily the center of attention, but you want to make as much noise as possible, meet as many people as you can. And as I've gotten older and matured and entered different rooms, I've found the value in being able to be more of like a sniper and just kind of finding that one right connection as opposed to like just 10 connections in general. Yeah. And then we also talked about, and I'd be interested in what the rest of the group has to say, is like a lot of times we think about value from a monetary perspective or from like an intrinsic perspective. So what are some other ways that you guys would define value and how value shows up for you guys?
Retweet. That's good. And I'm glad that you brought that up too, David, because a lot of times we do see it as currency, but like, let's talk a bit about integrity, right? So that social integrity, character, all that's a big part in it as well. Is there anybody from David's group that would like to also chime in and share? Just let me know in the chat. All right. Well, I know my group with Angelica, Amber, and Anansi. Anansi said something that was fire, y'all. I kid you not. And I'm going to steal it, but it's fine. He said, at the end of the day, I'm going to be me. They're going to get the authentic me, but I'll be flexible. And I thought a lot about the idea of how we show up in spaces. And it's like, we're going to give us 110%, but there's also that element of understanding, like, I'm still going to be flexible, understand everybody doesn't receive the same. So that was really cool. Thanks so much for that, Anansi. Dr. Bethune chimed in. She said, I shared a group with Braxton, Megan, Winston, very candid and colorful conversation about the power of being a lone voice, the generative and challenging space of solitude when expressing your voice. Dr. Bethune, I need you to chime in on that. It's kind of powerful. And I know you're on mute, but take yourself off mute. Can you chime in on that? That was good.
In a role of secretary here, but no, I'm joking. No, I mean, so what we were talking about that, and Winston actually sort of initiated this conversation about what it means when you are crafting and shaping a narrative, and it's not something that's necessarily reflected back to you or mirrored back to you with anyone in your proximity. So when you're a lone voice, what are some of the challenges of crafting a narrative? What are some of the generative insights that come from being alone? We didn't get to go a whole lot into that. We were kind of sharing some of our experiences. Meg, can I share your role? Meg is working with institutions evaluating social impact, and social impact is a shape-shifting creature in the 21st century. And so at any point in time, as that concept and that idea evolves, it can become something that you and you alone know how to conceive. And so it just, in a lot of different spaces and places, one can find themselves trying to shape a narrative that often reflects the experiences of a lot of people or organization or institution, yet you are the one singular voice or one singular person designated or appointed or empowered to decide on what that narrative is. Even in our personal lives, like, you know, who says that you're a creative? How do you know that you're a creative?
Wow.
How do you know that you're an artist? How do you know that you're a scholar? There's embodying it and expressing it, and then you're not always identified as a person in that role or in that position. So I'm gonna punctuate it so I don't ramble.
No, first of all, I can hear you talk, and I'm serious about being your intern, but nonetheless, that's true. And you bring up a really good point about, there's something that I wanted to the generative and challenging space of solitude when expressing your voice. That's so good. I'm reminded there was years back, Oprah did an interview where she said, I found that I was in a lot of spaces and I had the beautiful blessing, but it was also a burden of carrying my ancestors with me, but also trying to create that essence that that I felt the room needed. And that's what kind of makes it like a heavy burden, but a blessing all the same. So thank you so much for that. All right, y'all. So look, we're going to move to the next because I'm excited. Next, we're going to discuss when we think collective voice. And again, I'm going to ask y'all these questions to think about it, but I'm going to also put it in the chat for y'all to discuss. So when we discuss the collective voice, do you think we need a collective voice? What does that even mean, right? Because a lot of times it's like one band, one sound, but who band we playing on, all right? What are the pros? What are the cons? And if so, what do you believe are the steps to having a collective agenda and a collective voice? And as I'm saying that, I'm going to copy it here in the chat for you all to take with you. Command V. I can't sing, but that's fine. Gang, gang. All right, you guys. So listen, take those questions with you, discuss it in your groups. We're going to break out and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk. The groups be so amazing. I could stay in there for like hours.
I know. I'm not going to stay here for hours. So,
you know what? That's all right, sweet baby. That's all right.
I try to be honest, but
yes. You like, I'm not staying.
But no, sure. Skipping around to the groups, a lot of great dialogue. I see all the faces. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, yo, Braxton, how was your group?
It was great. It was great. We were very happy we were in the same breakout session because we got a little more comfortable and we kept the conversation going. Meg really let us off and she set us off on the importance of the collective. But I'm sorry, I got to take a point of personal privilege.
Go ahead.
I see my man, Boris Rogers down there.
Yes, the great.
And this is the man that we need to be celebrating this week. Because when we talk about the power of the collective, authentic voice, I mean, we've been waiting for something like this, right? For a long time. So I think there are people that are from Charlotte. Can we give them a second?
Yes, absolutely. So, Blues, you already know, I'm not going to speak on your behalf. I think you need to chime in on this one. Something very historical that you are basically leading and a part of happened this week. Go ahead, tell people who you are. Go.
My name is Blues, and I am the newly appointed Director of Creative Engagement for Blumenthal Performing Arts. So, yeah, I'm excited about the position. I'm excited about the things that I get to do, the people I get to work with, the people I get to usher in, the spaces I get to help create, the spaces I get to help to maintain, all of that. You know, the things that we're talking about today are the things that are on my table, are on my agenda to try to get done. So, yeah, there's work to be, like I said, there's work I want to do and there's work to be done. So it's going to take all of us. I'm here, but it's going to take all of us.
Yeah, 100% Blues. Now, don't touch that dial because I'm actually going to pick on you right now. When we talk the collective voice, what does that look like? We talked a little bit in our group, but I wanted you to share because you had some fire. So do you think we need a collective voice? And what does that even mean? And give the pros and cons.
Like I said, yeah, we definitely need a collective voice because it takes a army sometimes, a nation of people, a united front. We discussed how teachers were shutting down whole states because they needed things to get done. And it took everybody to raise their voice to say, here are the things we need and here are the things we want. Especially in our city, because we see so many neighborhoods and programs and venues that get pushed over and run out because there's no one to stand for them. There's like one or two people that'll stand and raise a fist and be like, no, we don't, you know what I'm saying? We don't want this here, but it'll be those one or two people and they'll be like, it's not important to them. You know, the developers will be like, it's not important to them because no one else is standing up. And that's like the pros of it. The cons is always, we can get a powerful collective. But when oppressed people get together and there's, you know, they know what they need, they can pick the weak link out, figure out who that person is and be like, listen, you know, we'll give you a little bit of something if you can make all this go away. And they do it. They fall for it. And, you know, in our group, I was praising Braxton. I was like, Braxton's willing to go to jail for y'all. Y'all got to understand what kind of leader that is. Like, I'm willing to stand out here and go to jail for you. I got kids and family and job, but I'm willing to go to jail for the people. So it's those kind of leaders that we need to protect and say, yeah, that's the person that we need in position to stand and talk for us. So
Right.
the cons is we got to watch out for the weak links. The pros are we got some strong folks that we really need to stand behind. For sure.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Blues, because a lot of people follow the person with a lot of noise. But Braxton, just giving flowers again, was one of those city leaders, again, since I was in college, who always pulled up and showed up. So I definitely agree. Is there anybody that want to share in the chat? Let me chime in. Let me tap in real quick. Tamika says, this is my first time, but I'm enjoying the discussions. Yes, Tamika, thanks for joining us. Come back next month. But yes, so is there anybody else who wants to chime in? You can drop any comments in the chat and I'll read them. Or if there's another group who would like to chime in, just say like me, oh, and then I'll sound off. But yeah. David, what was talking about in your group?
We kind of took more of a historical lens for it, because one of the things I'm curious about, and it seems like, and it could obviously just be like me living in this era, but I just feel like previous generations had a bit of like a natural kind of like, because the needs were a lot more innate, right? Like we were talking about like which bathroom you use, which restaurants you can sit in, those types of things. There was kind of a shared vision on like, these are just like bare minimum things that we need. Because this generation has a lot more opportunity than previous generations and has access to a lot more information and technology and a lot more stimulation, things that can make you kind of feel like there's progress and things like that. I feel like it's a little tough to kind of establish those collective things, and we kind of get caught in individualism a bit much. So we kind of talked about that and like wondering, like, you know, well, one, from a historical perspective, like obviously you had folks, you know, within the Black community that had different viewpoints or different strategies on how to attack this thing, whether it was like politically or economically or whatever. But there was, it just seems like there was a bit more conversation and collaboration. Like a lot of, like at the top of quarantine, I was watching a lot of like old, well, not old, but like joints from the 60s and 70s where they would have these like televised, like Black leader forums, so to speak, where it would be like a 2-hour conversation and you got like Stokely Carmichael and, you know, the guy who's like a mayor, you know what I'm saying, in New York, and like a senator, and like you have all these different types of people on a panel and they're talking about, you know, the plight of the Black community. So we were just kind of, we were kind of going back and forth on like the historical context of what it kind of looks like versus then versus now. And then there are the things that we don't know, right? Like we only have the nostalgic, we were all on the same page, you know what I'm saying, from what the video shows, but we don't know what those real beefs were internally as well. So just thinking about that, well, like now you can like see it on social media. Somebody doesn't agree, they're just gonna put it in your comment section. So just kind of talked about that a little bit.
And I'm glad that you brought up the element of technology, social media, the beautiful beast that gets us all in trouble, but when used properly, it's quite powerful. I'm gonna pick on you, Rosalina. Rosalia, am I saying that right? Rosalia. I was told to go to you. So take yourself off mute. I would love to hear your perspective, Rosalia, on this. When we talk the power of a collective voice, how do you feel about that? I see you coming in. Coming in. I see. I was like, I
know.
I see you coming in still.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, the audio glitched.
Yes, I got you. I was saying I would love to hear your perspective on the power of a collective voice. As a city, what does that look like? What does it mean? And what are the pros and the cons?
Just like I was sharing it before, it's like if you have a table and invite us all and talk about the issues that affect us as me, like Latinos, and you, like Blacks, I think it would, we could bring that and raise awareness about those issues. Many, like my husband says, too many voices, too many voices, but for me, it has worked. Like when I invite, like for example, like I invited my husband, as you can see, he's white, on this table to also bring, you know, his perspective. I married to him. We have learned our views on different issues, and at the end, we have to agree on a solution.
Right. Yes.
And that, you know, we would not be married, but I think this is how we have to see our collective voices, you know, like, I hear you, I understand. What can I do for you? How can we work together? At the end of the road, you know, this is, you know, we're on the same path, we're on the same life, and we cannot be fighting with each other. On the contrary, let's talk, let's have that conversation. And this is why I'm here. I love that, you know, that you guys are doing this. And if I had like 3, 4 Mexicans here, they probably would be agreeing with me and bringing the same, you know, power.
Yes.
Well,
so thank you.
That brings up something that we were kind of talking about in our group. Winston and I were talking about when you're part of the collective, the importance of being part of the collective. You know, sort of like how a plant, you know, plant does really well when it's in the right soil, right?
Yeah.
Because that soil provides the right nutrients and the right balance. You know, Winston was really talking about, you know, when he was part of the last class that was part of busing, and when he was going to Myers Park, while living in Wilshire, he didn't have that same connection to his place and his community like his mother did at West Charlotte. But he found that when he went to his HBCU. I didn't have, I had that at my very white boarding school because I was able to get that collective back in New York with another group of Black and Latino public school students that took the same path. So I had a different experience than my other Black and Latino alumni at my high school. So being part of the collective is important as well.
Absolutely. And Braxton, you actually lead into this next comment I wanted to highlight from Benny. Collective voice equals collective choice. It's really us coming together and deciding that we're going to do it. Real quick, Benny, do you want to expound on that? What did you mean by collective voice equals collective choice? Chime in. You on mute, bro.
Got you. Appreciate it. Nah, one thing I know we talked about in our group several times was coming together, but also knowing our particular role when we come together, you know, not knowing who can be the finger, who can be the arm, who can be different parts, and staying true to that role. But collective voice, collective choice mainly is when you have one person speaking, it tends to just be that one idea going out. But if you can speak, we all gonna come up with stuff that's gonna be totally different colors of the Crayola box. But it's about turning that box into a whole mural, which creates a choice of vision, a choice of idea, a choice of perception. So
yeah, come on, Benny. Man, put yourself on mute, Benny. That was fire. Put yourself on mute. Braxton, did you hear that? Oh, I'm a bar that, Benny. No, but facts. It's about bringing all of it together because, again, the collective voice is a collective choice. Rosalia, you have a question from Amber. Amber, I'm going to let you unmute yourself and chime in real quick. Then we'll move on to breakout 3. Amber, unmute. Yes.
Yes. My question for Rosalia is just her perspective, or what I'm always interested in how other nationalities see the impact or see the issues that are going on in the Black community. So can she just give us some insight on what is going on in the Latino community? Are they talking about our issues? And if so, what kind of conversations are they having?
What are the Latino community talking about? You know,
well,
issues, what are the conversations?
Well, first of all, you know, I wanted to let you know that I left my Mexico because of the discrimination of racism, but nothing compared, you know, with the racism here in America. So yes, we are talking about what is happening right now and all the police brutality, because this also happens to us and we're watching you. This is very close to our hearts because if you're brown, our son almost got killed by the police because he was mistakenly, you know, by the police in his car, that he was not involved. But anyway, so if you're brown, you're black, we know that. And that happened to me with the police. So we are understanding what is happening. And this is what we have to be together with you. We have to support you. We have to support Black Lives Matters. And this has to change. This is, the police has to be re-educated. All police have to be out. We're just very aware of all these people who are dying because of police brutality. So we are with you. We understand. This is on our news. In Spanish news, it's about George Floyd. It's about, you know, all these Black, beautiful people who die because in the hands of police.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rosalia, you bring up a good point because I'm Costa Rican and Black, and that's something that when we say Black Lives Matter, I was asked a lot is, well, do we count? Meaning like Hispanic, Latinx, and I'm like, yeah, Afro-Latinos do count. So you really bring up a very, very good point, Rosalia. And Amber, thank you for sharing that question with the beautiful Rosalia. Eddie wanted to chime in on Benny's comment of collective. Let me scroll up. Collective voice equals collective choice. Eddie, I'm gonna let you unmute and chime in.
Yeah, it makes me want to. I feel like in my group, I feel like I wasn't getting to the point the way I wanted to, and it was basically around the thought of sometimes whenever we think, I think I was being a little bit too hinged on the semantics, right? Collective voice, singular, concerns me, especially because there are power dynamics that exist within a singular community, and so a lot of times when we come together. If you're the person of influence and you have blind spots, like for instance, we've seen Black Lives Matter criticize a couple things about how trans and queer people are left in the fringes whenever we have this conversation.
Right.
And that's not so much as prevalent, right? But it's a historic context that we talk about, right? A lot of times we talk about like the civil rights movement and we put Malcolm X juxtaposed to Martin Luther King as if they were fighting for two different things. Right. And for me, collective voice includes some battles. It includes some internal struggle. It includes the tension that is there as well. There are identities. I like what Dr. Bethune said about there are critical intersections that happen. Yeah. And I feel like in a collective, there's some perspectives that I don't carry within my person. Right. And if I'm leading the charge and just kind of leading from where I'm at, thinking that I got everybody behind me, yeah, we might miss something, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's about like when we talk about collective voice, it's a like I was saying in the group, I can't speak for somebody, but I can speak with them. And that's kind of my thought about collective voice and the need for it and how it works.
That's that you know, the thing about Malcolm and Martin is that again, they could find common ground, but they weren't compromised, right? Like one metaphor I often use is you can sit the Catholic Church on one side of the table and Planned Parenthood on the other side of the table. But if you put abortion on the table to talk about, they'll just fight. They're gonna bang. But if you put low cost access for women's health or the eradication of cervical cancer, you know, for women, those are things that they can intersect on and wholeheartedly move forward with. So we have to understand, you know, the difference between common ground, intersectionality, and versus compromising your values.
Ooh, y'all, I'm sweating. Let me tell y'all something. Put yourself on mute, Braxton. I'm kidding. But I want to highlight a comment from Dr. Bethune. One of the challenges of collective agenda is located at critical intersections of community. Fire per usual. I'm going to pick on somebody per request. Miss Crystal Cawley, and I hope I said your last name right. I always like to give our queens their flowers. But Crystal, I want you to chime in. I was told to put you on the spot. So unmute yourself and let's tap in.
Oh yes, I do believe that a collective voice is powerful in my city, where I was telling my group is 94% predominantly white. The Black voice has been invisible, and so what I did on June the 11th, I created a panel. I had different people speaking so they could own their narrative and tell their story, and also it was live on Facebook, so everyone in the world could see it, and it was really successful. So those are things that you can do. You can create you can go live on Facebook, grab a couple of people and let them tell their story, and it will open up the eyes, which it did to our city leaders, my city council, to start to understand that the Black voice has a voice. And then also, as being Black, the discrimination with the Hispanic race and the Latino race. For instance, I work on the psych and detox unit at my hospital. And so we had a lot of Hispanics that would come through detoxing from pills. And so, we were trying to ask, well, what's going on? Because in my county, it's the agriculture here is a big business. We have a lot of apple orchards here. So a lot of the Hispanic men were saying that the farmers were giving them pills so they would work faster. And to us, that's like, a form of slavery. And then, like, if they were to talk about it, then they were not welcome back. And so you can imagine being in this country, you can't speak English, then again, and then you're being worked like that, and you're illegal, and you have to take drugs so you can work faster. And this is facts. And so I started to speak out about it, because they can't, out of fear. And so, so we, as all people of color, whether we're from the Caribbean or from Mexico, whatever, we and Black people, we need to stand together, because in some instances there's a divide. And so we do need to stand together.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing, Crystal. That's really good, really good. I want to turn our attention real quick because I learned something new and I love learning new terms. And Braxton chimed in saying that's a new term for me. Dr. Bethune put in the chat, interest convergence. Interest convergence is a theory coined by the late Derek Bell, a law professor and spiritual godfather to the field of study known as critical race theory. Interest convergence stipulates that Black people achieve civil rights victories only when white and Black interests converge. Dr. Bethune, can I have you unmute to kind of break that down for us, and why, when we discuss the collective voice, how does this fit into what that is?
Yeah, well, so interest convergence is this idea. It comes out of legal scholarship, but thank you so much for pulling that definition. What interest conversion now refers to is just whenever you have people that exist at different locations or positions around a particular issue. Some people are at the outskirts or the margins. Other people tend to be centered and have their narrative and their interests reinforced over and over and over. And what you often see is that regardless of people's location, wherever the consensus or the interests converge, wherever you find that sort of specificity in terms of issues, that is what gains the most traction. Yeah. And so when people are forming a collective agenda and also bearing in mind inclusivity, trying to have as many voices as possible at the table, one of the first or the best spaces to start coalescing around is those things that you have in terms of shared interest. Mm-hmm. From that point, the way to really amplify and galvanize a collective agenda is by bringing the other more proximal interests of people who are at the margins or at other locations, bringing those also to the table. You actually strengthen an agenda when you make an agenda more comprehensive and more inclusive. Not just necessarily focusing on the thing that you share in common, but that's the departure point, as Braxton was noted there. That's the departure point. That's the starting location on the GPS when shaping and forming a collective agenda. So.
Wow. Dr. Bethune, here's what I need you to do ASAP. Put your socials in the chat. Also, can I be your intern yet again? I keep telling you this each block. Stop playing with me.
I'm watching your show, okay? I'm on YouTube watching your show.
We're not doing that. I'm going to be your intern. But yes, so listen, y'all. I tell you, each Hugh House, I kid you not, it's like I learned something new. And that's what I'm so grateful for to even just be a part of this family is this is what we believe in. This is what we believe in here at Hugh House is you walk away with knowledge, but also different perspectives, right? And the point of it is to take those perspectives and put it into action, but knowing where do you activate, right? Because there's nothing worse than having all this energy and you just like, rah, Super Saiyan, but it's knowing where to put that energy so it can serve the collective and serve the community, because that's what we do here at Hugh House. So listen, you guys, I hate this part. I really, really do. But we have reached the end. I hate this part, Day. Braxton, I hate this part. David, I hate this part. Eddie, Liz, Benny, Blues, Dr. Bethune, Rosalia, Amber, I see all y'all. I hate Winston. I hate this part, but we gotta end here. Okay, so here's what I need y'all to do. Drop your ats in social where we can connect, and also so you can connect with us. And here's what I need y'all to do. Follow us at It's Hugh House. Also follow us at It's the Block. Day and David, tag team, help me in putting all our socials in there so people can engage with us. Because we do these monthly and we want you all to always tap in with us, okay? But before we go, Braxton, one of my favorite humans, I want you to give us a final word. How did you feel about tonight, though? First of all,
hey, there is no co-hosting Will Javier. You just part of the show. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Nah, this is this is dope. I really appreciate even thinking about me, considering me for this. It feels good just to have this conversation. A lot of new ideas. I mean, just what Crystal put out there just now, just going live and letting people tell their story. I mean, like, come on. You know, the collective is important. You know, always try to keep your voice, even when it's difficult, find a way to get it in there. I appreciate what y'all are doing at Hugh House. Y'all just keep going. There are big things that they are up to. So keep plugged in with them and figure out how to support the movement.
Absolutely. Now, before we go to Braxton, you already know I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we need to pull up to the polls, sir. So before we head out, tell the people how important is it, especially now in this time with everything going on. Let's talk pulling up to the polls, not just for, 2020 elections, of course, that too, but locally, knowing who's in seats so we can really be about that action.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. You know, I ran all my campaigns on building a more equitable, accessible, and interconnected Charlotte, but that's what voting does automatically. You build your equity in the system. People literally will pay to know who you are. You know, they will pay more money to know who you are if you vote. You have access first to the ideas and what's going on, and then you have to vote all the time. You only get results if you vote in every election, right? National, statewide, and local. We have the president on the ballot. We have the governor. We have county commissioners, but we also have bond money. The city has over $200 million in bonds that will be your tax dollars and debts that will, and you will have a say in it. It's very important, but that's just where it starts. Learning the candidates, learning the issues, voting, but you have to be involved after. So go to votebraxton.com.
I cannot.
So you keep up with everything that's going on here in Charlotte, all right?
Listen, y'all heard what he said. Listen, Braxton, once again, thank you so much. It was such an honor. Literally, thank you for being about that action. And honestly, you all, thank you so much for joining us. I see all of your beautiful faces here. I see you, Kay. I see you, Jordan. I see you, Casey. I see you, Nefertiti. First of all, Nefertiti, that name, though. Lord have mercy, all right? But here's what I need y'all to do. Before we get to the next Hugh House next month, I need y'all to follow us on all social media platforms. That is in the chat, so go ahead, snag and grab that. And, that's actually a good idea. Day, I'm sure you saw the comment about merchandise. So I'm gonna just go ahead and speak life into that. Amen. Amen. All right. So we're gonna, Amber, we'll work on it and pray on it.
We're trying to make sure there's a demand before we create something that y'all gonna just be like, it'll be nice, but we ain't gonna consume it. So
I'm gonna consume that. Yeah.
Ooh, they all came off mute for that. I don't know, Day.
I'm gonna consume that. Hugh House, a shirt.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I see somebody with that Dave made merch, Angelica.
Yes.
I see what's going on. But no,
Yes.
Sure. We're talking about it. And
I want to rap.
Yes.
We hear that. We hear that. So, real quick plug again, if you're not following our publication, it's The Block _ on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well, Twitter as well. Please tap in. That is our communication channel. What the conversations we have here will be published on the Block publication, as well as other things about artists and creative entrepreneurs of color and what we're doing here in Charlotte and beyond. So please tap in. Cool.
Yes, absolutely, Day. And also before we go, I want to highlight Casey's comment because it was so beautiful. Love these discussions and getting to know some of you. These are the communities I want to connect with more. Sometimes I feel trapped in this college life bubble, but this gets me out. Thank you. No, Casey, thank you. And let me tell you, when you graduate, the block gonna be even hotter because of you, okay? So thanks so much for joining us, Casey. We appreciate you, beautiful. All right, y'all, so listen, next The Block is October 8th. Between then and now, follow us, engage, listen, DM us, and we're gonna keep manifesting this merch because Amber done started some, all right? Grace and peace, grace and peace be unto y'all. Don't touch that dial. Love y'all, beautiful people. We out.